me in my mother's arms in Mobile, Alabama. Look at this. I cannot walk, I cannot talk, but I can already let you know I'm here. I am already telling my story. This is what it takes to tell your story. You have to be willing to open your mouth, and it helps if you have really good hair. This is the very first thing I ever wrote. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see what a great story it is. It comes from here, here, and here. Every story comes from what you know, what you feel, and what you can remember. Imagine. What you know and remember, what you feel, and what you can imagine. Hey, Alan! And Alan would say, huh? And I could think a little bit over, hey, Alan. Huh? He broke my heart. I write about heartbreak in every single book that I write because it's important to me to write about what hurts your heart as well as what makes you happy. So that broke my heart. It's also important to write about what makes you angry. This is what made me angriest growing up. Right here, my rotten, red-headed little brother Mike, who tortured me. I see heads nodding. My little brother Mike had to have everything I had. He had to go everywhere I went. He had to do everything I did. And when he didn't get to, this is what he said. I'm telling Mom. Who's heard it? Yes, you should write this down immediately. Write down the name of that person immediately. Ah, this is the story. You hear the stories you have to tell? They're fantastic stories. I tell the story of me and my brother in every book I write. This little brother of mine told on me for things that I never even did, and my mother always believed him. Because who would not believe this face? Mouth open, goofy grin. I'm just so adorable. Not. I spent my life trying to get rid of my little brother Mike. And my little brother Mike spent his life coming back over and over and over again. Mouth open, goofy grin. But what Mr. Adorable did not know was that his slightly older sister, was going to grow up to become a writer and get her revenge. So I wrote Love Ruby Lavender, a 9-year-old girl, a little redhead who just loves her grandmother so much. In this little teeny tiny town in Mississippi, they do everything together. They paint the house shell-shocked pink, and they call it the Pink Palace. They steal 3 chickens that really need stealing in chapter 1 and rescue them. Their life is so fabulous in this little town in Mississippi, except for one thing. Ruby has a mortal enemy who tortures her. Who do you think it may be? Yes, take a look at that boy. The reason I think about notebooks and how important they are is because I'm constantly listing, as I told you, in my notebook, and I was listing all these things about Mississippi that I loved and all the things I didn't love, the heartbreaks, and my brother was on the list like this, Mike, with big letters, under people who torture me, and under things that I loved. I was making lists of I love a lot of things, a whole lot of things, like, and I loved those Easter dresses. How many of y'all get a new Easter dress or a new suit or whatever for Easter every year? I mean, isn't that cool? I just loved all those dresses. This one in particular I loved because it had lace underneath it, and petticoats and ribbons. So I saw that on my list, those dresses and those shoes and those purses and those bonnets. And then I saw my brother on the list of people who drove me crazy, and I was writing this book about Ruby and her grandmother and how much they love each other. And there had to be somebody who tortured Ruby, and I looked at those lists on my paper and I said, I can do something with this. And I took my pencil and I drew a line from this dress to this boy. And I turned my brother into a 9-year-old girl. And I named him Melba Jane. cousin has a cousin named Mel Jane. I love that name because it just fits my brother. And I gave him tip-tappy shoes and lacy dresses. When I finished Love Ruby Lavender, I gave the very first copy to my brother, and I said, "What? I've written my first chapter book, and you were in it." And Mike, who today is a 56-year-old United States Marine, and he still looks just like that, said, "I am." And I said, "Yeah, you're on page 8. So my brother took Love Ruby Lavender, and he opened it to page 8, and I said, "Read it out loud." Mel Jane wore 7 ribbons in her curly brown hair and 1,000,000 thumbtacks on the bottom of her hard-soled shoe. I'm not in here. I said, "Yeah, you are. You're a girl." "I am not a girl. You're a bad girl." Oh, you don't know how good this felt. This felt so good. Mel Jane as a character was exactly like my brother was growing up. She's tattling and she's doing all kinds of torturing things. It made me feel so good. And can you blame me? No, of course not. So I felt a lot better about him when I wrote the next book. We'll get to that in a minute. I also write about what scares me. And here's the thing that scared me the most growing up. I want you to look carefully at this picture. First you'll find my brother. He's the one with his mouth open, a little bitty one. And look at me, I'm in the yellow dress. Do I look happy? Not only am I unhappy, I am petrified because look at that woman behind me. She's touching me. Look at her. Her hand is as big as my chest. She and her 2 sisters scared me to death. There they are in the middle row. We call them the maiden aunts. They never got married. They never had children. And they always lived in the very same great big house in Laurel, Mississippi, where no air moved. Because they never moved. Until we showed up, and then bam! The screen door would slap back against the house, and those 3 women would come running out the front door, pushing each other, shoving, tumbling down the steps to come be the first people to hug us. And they'd throw, you know people like this? They just can't wait to see you. They'd throw their arms out and they'd go, "Come love my neck, I could just eat you up." And I thought they would eat me up. I ran the other way as fast as I could. I remember this day. I remember my mother grabbing me by the back of the yellow dress. I remember hearing it rip. "You come back here and hug your aunt's neck." No! Can you see my little hand up here like this? Hurry up, she's touching me, hurry up. However, have you ever been really afraid of somebody when you were little and then you aren't when you get older? Yeah. Write that name down too, because that's something worth writing about. When I got older, I adored them. Adored them. I would go to their house all by myself, and they would serve me stale coconut cake and warm root beer, and we'd sit on the porch and they'd tell me all their stories. But when I was little, they were the scariest things I'd ever seen in my whole entire life. They were wrinkly, and they had these bony fingers and beaky noses and these scratchy voices. I thought they looked like chickens. So when I wrote Love Ruby Lavender, I turned them into chicken. And here they are on the cover of Love Ruby Lavender, my Aunt Ivy, my Aunt Bibby, and my Aunt Bess. And the chickens in Love Ruby Lavender are named Ivy, Bibby, and Bess. So forever and ever, my aunts live on within the pages of the book. That's the power of story. So take the stuff of your life and turn it into story.